With the 2024 OTAs officially underway, there's a lot riding on the Lions for this season. That brings us to the question of which Lions are under the most intense pressure to perform going into this year. We're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello all Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, as we already know, the Lions are officially now into their OTAs. That means, again, we're getting closer and closer to getting back to actual organized football, actually playing football in the whole 9 yards. Now, here's the thing. A new season means there's new challenges because, as we all know, every season brings its own unique challenges. It brings its own unique different things you've got to try and overcome and try and deal with. And new challenges means this. You either will rise above the challenge that's in front of you, or you will fail to meet that challenge. As we head into 2022, and it's 2024, pardon me, and with the OTAs officially having started, gotten underway for the Lions, we find ourselves in an unusual position, I would say, for the Lions, not only as fans, but also as the organization, because the Lions are not only defending the division title that they acquired in 2023, so last season, but they're also pushing forward and trying to gain more. They are trying to contend for a Super Bowl championship as well. So it's kind of an unusual position for the Lions because realistically, the Lions haven't been in a position like this since the early 90s, so it's not a position we're used to being in. However, with these aspirations means that the Lions that are there are under a lot of pressure. They are probably under the most pressure to perform and to excel that we have probably seen in a very, very long while. And if you think about it, Dan Campbell's kind of highlighted this in times past where he said that, listen, we're no longer hiding from everybody. Pretty much everybody knows who we are. Everybody knows what we're about. Everybody knows that, hey, if you're going to come and play the Detroit Lions, you're going to be playing a very good, a very physical, a very aggressive football team. And, as Dan Campbell has said, that listen, we're not trying to hide from anybody because we're going to be waiting for you on your front porch step, and when it's time to play, we're going to come out and we're going to sock you in the mouth. So it's like, listen, everybody knows who the Lions are. Everybody knows what the Lions are about. And again, nobody's going to be surprised by us. We're going to be right there, and hey, now it's time to play. Hope you brought your big boy pants because it's going to be physical. Now, when we're talking about 2024, obviously, the entire organization itself is under pressure to not only repeat for what they did last year, which was a 12-5 record, winning the division title, getting 2 playoff victories. There's all of that pressure to just maintain that, to make sure you continue that trend. But like I said, there also is a lot of pressure for the Lions to push forward. Because now that we've seen that the Lions can do what they did last year, now we're expecting them to take it to the next step, to take it to the next level. But, like I said, even though the entire organization itself is under pressure, there are definitely, undoubtedly, some others that are in the organization that are under even more pressure than just the general organization itself. Now, in that case, which Lions from the team are actually under the most pressure going into 2024? Well, that's where we're going to go with this episode today. So, who's the first Lion that is under the most pressure this year? Not necessarily in any specific order. These are just the guys that instantaneously came to my mind when I started thinking about this episode. The first Lion that I believe is under the most pressure is Jameson Williams. Now, understand something. I talked about Jameson Williams in yesterday's episode as being a prime breakout candidate for the Detroit Lions also this year. But let's be entirely honest here. Jameson Williams is one of those guys that it could go one way or the other. And for me, yeah, he's a prime breakout candidate, but he's also under a lot of pressure to perform this year. Because you have to think about it. The Lions are under a lot of pressure in general to perform, but for Jameson Williams, he's under a lot of pressure just simply because of things that have happened in the past. Let's first and foremost understand something. We traded up to draft him in the 2022 NFL Draft. But the problem is that due to the injury that he sustained while he was in college, he didn't play much his first year. Then he got suspended for a gambling violation, which took him out of the first 4 games of 2023. And even though in 2023 he was able to perform, he was able to play in a majority of the games, the production just simply was not that good. It wasn't as good as what we were hoping to have, but the point of the matter is that when you take into consideration all the other stuff that's been going on, you kind of gave him a little bit of a pass for 2023. At least I did. But the point is now that 2024 has come, many fans are realistically wanting to see Jameson Williams do a lot more this year because, again, we have to understand something. In the past, with everything that had happened with the injury and the suspension, there were a lot of fans that had extreme negative opinions about him, and they were constantly posting about it, whether it was on Facebook, whether it was on Twitter, whatever the case might have been. This is going to be the year where Jameson Williams can officially fully change that. Then you also have to think about it this way, why there's a lot of pressure on Jameson Williams. At this point, he's already halfway through his rookie contract. Again, I understand he's a first-round draft pick, and that means there is an option for the 5th year. But realistically, it's a 4-year contract with the potential for that 5th-year contract to be picked up. So you have to think about it. 2 years into his contract, we really haven't seen much out of him. So for Jameson Williams, if he wants to ensure that when it's his time to get a new deal, he's got to start putting the results and the production on the field. So that way he can get that deal that he's looking for later on down the road. Otherwise, you never know what's going to happen. But again, because of the fact that he hasn't really performed a whole lot or really hasn't done a whole lot up to this point, it kind of puts him in a little bit of a tight bind when we're talking about what his future value might be to the Detroit Lions as far as monetary. Then you have to think about it this way. It's Jameson Williams' actual first time being a full-time starter this year. Again, no suspensions, no injuries to contend with. He's replacing Josh Reynolds. He's going to get a good bulk of production. He's going to get a good bulk of targets. So again, being a first-time full-time starter, there is a lot of pressure for him to not only meet at least what Josh Reynolds did last year, but to quite frankly surpass it in a great amount. Because it's like, listen, Josh Reynolds was a 4th-round draft pick, and Josh Reynolds is primarily viewed kind of more like a solid overall piece. Jameson Williams is considered a very fast, very special kind of player, so you would expect that he's going to give you a lot more than what Josh Reynolds could give you. So again, that's why I think Jameson Williams is one of the Lions that's under the most pressure to perform in 2024. So that's number 1. And again, not in any particular order, not in any ranking. I'm just putting these out there as they came to my mind when I was putting this episode together. My paper is giving me some fun right now. Now, Detroit Lion number 2 that's under a lot of pressure this year. I know some people may or may not agree with me on this one, but it's got to be rookie cornerback Terrion Arnold. You could technically throw Rakestraw in there as well, but the only reason why I'm putting Terrion Arnold on here and not Rakestraw is because we have to take a look at the whole dynamic of how Detroit media kind of works here. Because again, this is kind of based upon how the media and fans react versus the actual situation itself. Because I know that, Arnold is a rookie. But we have to understand something here. Lions fans, they have long been waiting for a shutdown corner ever since Darius Slay got traded away. And you have to think about it. What makes this a very intense year for Arnold is based upon a couple of factors. Number 1, and again, I know people don't want to hear this. I know people are trying to have told me in the past you can't make this comparison. But trust me when I tell you, I keep hearing it. It keeps coming up. There are so many people out there that are so afraid that, Terrion Arnold might yet again turn into another bust like Jeff Okudah. I don't believe there's any chance of that happening because, again, Bob Quinn is not Brad Holmes, and Brad Holmes is not Bob Quinn. Number 2, Jeff Okudah was drafted 3 overall. Terrion Arnold was drafted 24 overall. And again, the difference in how those guys were coming out of college is also extremely different. But as the saying goes, again, when you have a bad experience or a bad memory, it's hard for people to get over. And for some Lions fans, they really, really are having a hard time letting go of the whole Jeff Okudah experience because, well, it wasn't that long ago when we drafted him. It was after all, 2020. So there's that first part. There's a lot of pressure for him to overcome that bad memory, to be like, hey, I'm not going to follow in this player's footsteps. So that's point number one. Point number two. This one is more based upon the actual performance of what he's potentially going to give us. We have to take a look at the fact that the pass defense for the Detroit Lions has largely been held as the Achilles heel of the defense. And again, when you look at what Terrion Arnold is walking into, he is walking into this pass defense room, he's walking into this cornerback room as being the guy that is finally going to be able to fix this area. He's going to be the guy that everyone's looking to be like, listen, we need a guy that can come on in, who can be a solid cornerback, at least in his very first year, and then develop into a shutdown corner, so that way we can get the Lions into a position to actually compete and contend for that Super Bowl that we were this close on missing last year. So again, there's going to be a lot of intense pressure put on Arnold. Be like, listen, you were considered one of the best cornerback prospects coming out of college. We need you to step in right away. We need you to be that number one cornerback for us opposite of Carlton Davis, so that way our pass defense is much, much better, so that way we can actually make it to a Super Bowl this year. Especially considering the fact we have all these different wide receivers and quarterback tandems that we're going to have to deal with. Then you have to think about this. I talked about how Rakestraw could have been thrown into this, but here's the way I'm going to include Rakestraw in this as a pressure moment for Terrion Arnold. You have to think about it. Rakestraw himself is a fellow rookie cornerback. So without a doubt, those two are always going to be compared because they were paired together in the exact same draft class and they were put together one pick after the other. So there are going to be times, I guarantee you this, when things are not going one for the other, vice versa, that fans are going to be like, man, this guy's outperforming the other. Did we overreach on this dude, blah, 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 because people do it all the time. Like, for me, I don't understand why people do it, because there's always a different set of circumstances, there's always a different skill set, there's always a different player level, whatever the case is. But it would not surprise me that at times Rakestraw might perform better than Arnold, and then you're going to have people start comparing the two because they're rookie cornerbacks, they were on the same draft, they were on the same team that got drafted by. Again, it's going to happen. It's going to put pressure on Arnold. And then finally, again, we just have to call it for what it is. First round draft picks, they always are under a lot of pressure. It's just part of being a first round draft pick. You're going to be under a lot of pressure. You're going to have a lot of people asking you questions. You're going to have a lot of people that expect stuff out of you. So again, there's a lot of pressure for a lot of these Lions. But for Terrion Arnold, he's definitely got a lot more reasons to have pressure on him. He's number 2 on my list. Again, no particular order, but again, just the way it came out. Now, number 3. This one is pretty self-explanatory as soon as I say the name. Quarterback Jared Goff. Again, we just have to call it for what it is here. There are still Lions fans that don't like Jared Goff. There are still Lions fans that are belly aching, they're whining, they're moaning, they're complaining about the contract that Jared Goff got. They're instantly thinking that Jared Goff is going to become a ball and chain for the Lions organization, and that all he's going to do is drag the Lions down. He's going to make it difficult. Blah 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 blah. We've heard it all, and we're going to continue to hear about it for the next, however many years. But the point of the matter is that when you think about it, Jared Goff is now under a lot of pressure this year because, well, when you get a new contract, that means that even more is now expected of you. And, well, you have to think about it. There's about 212 million reasons that there's more pressure put on Jared Goff. When you get a $212 million contract, you're going to have a high amount of expectation that's going to be placed upon you to perform. Now, granted, over the last 2.5 years, Jared Goff has performed exceedingly well for the Lions. But now he's going to have to keep performing at that level, if not even better, so that way, again, the Lions can make it to the Super Bowl. Like I then said as well, the haters, the doubters, they've always had it out for Goff. Ever since we made the trade for him with Matthew Stafford and the Rams, they have always been out for Jared Goff. And a lot of them were saying, listen, it's just a matter of time before we let go of Jared Goff. He's not getting a new contract. And now that he's gotten a new contract, all they have simply done is, like they always do, they like to move the goalposts. And now they're saying that despite that new contract, all that it does is just shift the complaint value to saying, oh, well, now he's got all this money. He's going to screw the Lions over this way, blah, 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 blah. It's no longer about this. It's now about that. And that's always what they do. But the whole point of the matter is it still is applying pressure on Jared Goff. It's still applying doubt on Jared Goff, which in this case, I'm kind of cool with that because as Jared Goff said, he plays best when he's being doubted. And then finally, You just have to take a look at it from the position that he plays. As the quarterback, he is the leader, and as such, he's the one that's going to be primarily held responsible by most people for the success or the failure of the season and also of the rest of the players, and to repeat the division crown for this year and to get to the Super Bowl. The quarterback always is put under the most scrutiny because he's considered the most important player, and oftentimes he's the most paid player. So again, quarterbacks are always put under a magnifying glass, a microscope. They're always going to be heavily scrutinized. Jared Goff is no stranger to this. But again, because of the situation that we find ourselves in, him getting a new contract, the fact that we are pushing for a Super Bowl, he's going to be one of the guys that's under the most pressure this year. And now we get to my last guy on my list. This is a guy that I have constantly been in a sense, not very happy with the performance. I know there are a lot of other Lions fans that I interact with that are also not happy with this dude. But again, it is what it is. And that is defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. And I know this one literally by heart. I literally am going to show you this. I have it right here on this page, and all I've got is literally the same thing right down there. It says, I know this one by heart. No damn notes are needed. And it's because, well, realistically, we've gone through this whole thing with Aaron Glenn multiple times. Aaron Glenn has got to find a way to get this defense to perform. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. There's no more excuses left for Aaron Glenn at this point. Brad Holmes has given him literally everything he possibly can to get this defense up on its feet. He's given him defensive linemen. He's given him linebackers. He's given him defensive backs. He's given him a whole damn defense at this point. 4 off seasons, and the majority of draft picks have gone to fixing his defense, to supplementing talent for his defense. We just had this draft where the first 2 picks in the draft were getting cornerbacks to fix the cornerback room. This whole off season was about fixing the cornerback room because we traded for a cornerback, we signed a cornerback, we drafted 2 cornerbacks. The point of the matter is like, listen, at this point, you cannot use any excuses for Aaron Glenn to say why this defense cannot perform, especially with what we saw last year at points. Again, I've talked about this in the past, but last year the Detroit Lions had the number 2 rushing defense. So it's like, okay, first and foremost, you better maintain that. The rushing defense needs to be just as good or at least get that number 2 spot. And if you could possibly even do it, let's get the number 1 rushing defense. But you have to, without a shadow of a doubt, get that passing defense to at least be average. You cannot, under any circumstances, having Kirby Joseph, having Ife Melifonwu, having Brian Branch, and then drafting Terrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw, trading for Carlton Davis, and signing Amik Robinson, having one of the worst passing defenses again. If you do, then at that point, I don't know what to do. At that point, there is no chance of success with Aaron Glenn's defense because it's like, listen, you are a fellow cornerback. You cannot, with all of this talent that has been invested into your secondary, continue to fail to stop quarterbacks and wide receivers. It can't continue. And again, we're talking about making a push, a bid for the Super Bowl here. What was one of the biggest reasons why we didn't make it to the Super Bowl last year? It was because we couldn't stop the freaking passing game. You go back to the conference championship game. Again, there was a lot of things that happened in that game. The offense had fumbles, it had drops, but you go back to the defense in particular, it was because we couldn't stop Brock Purdy carving us up late in the game. And it was because he was doing a lot of check down throws, he was finding guys, and he was just moving up and down the field. That cannot happen this year. Aaron Glenn has got to bring out every trick that he knows. He has got to get the most out of this defense. Otherwise, we're not going to be going to where we want to go. A lot of pressure is on Aaron Glenn this year to finally get that defense to match the prowess of the offense. We know the offense is a championship caliber offense. It's the defense we've been waiting on now going on for 4 years. If Aaron Glenn can finally get that defense to be even remotely close to that, we've got a shot for a Super Bowl. But if he continues to provide the same kind of defense that we've had in the past, which is at best inconsistent to sometimes just downright god-awful, we're in trouble. The offense is only going to be able to take you so far. The defense has to step up and pull its own weight at some point. But that's why I'm saying what I'm saying about Aaron Glenn. There's a lot of people this year that are looking at that defense and saying, listen, how far we go this year is going to ride on what you do or don't do. So again, Aaron Glenn's got a lot of pressure on him, and he's not even stepping on the field as a player. But anyway, folks, I figured I'd put this together because, again, with the OTAs out, everybody's going to be paying attention to these players. Everyone's going to be paying attention to these coaches. They're going to want to see how they perform, how they react, what they're doing in camp. And then, obviously, once we get to mandatory minicamp, it's going to be amped up even more. And then once we get to training camp and preseason, it's going to be amped up even more on top of that. But again, I figured I'd talk about this kind of because of the fact that we are in OTAs and things are now, again, as I said, they're starting to amp up. We're starting to get into the nuts and bolts of the season here. But having said that, I think I've done a pretty good job with the segment, so I'm going to end it right here and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so, again, I highly encourage y'all please to subscribe to the channel, but I also encourage y'all please to do this. Make sure you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I'm pushing out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want you guys coming back to the channel as soon as I push something out, so that way you guys never miss any more content. And the best way to do that is to make sure you turn on that bell notification icon, so that way you never miss any updates. I also encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. The more we share it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said to everybody, I hope y'all are having a good day. I hope y'all are having a blessed day. I hope y'all have something that makes you happy, makes you smile, and of course, I hope you enjoyed the content. And with that being said, I just want to say to everybody, God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the very next episode.